So I've decided I'm going to dip my toe in the local farmers market this year and see if I can make a buck or two growing food for some folks.
I'm not going to quit my day job right away. What I want to do this year, since we live in a really rural area, is to figure out how much market there is and how much I can sell and how much I can produce on my little place. And I've put together my 45 years of home gardening experience along with a lot of research about the most cutting edge principles in market farming and gardening and permaculture to make a pretty complicated plan. And I'm hoping to do a couple of videos a week and take you guys along for the ride, good or bad. If you're interested in this kind of stuff, either for market gardening or just trying to do better on your own home garden, hit that subscribe button because I'm going to show you my successes and failures throughout the year and do a whole lot of videos on specific techniques. But what I want to concentrate on this video is irrigation for my little market garden.
If you live in the eastern half of the U.S., irrigation for, well, any kind of gardening seems almost counterintuitive. But if you live in the west, it's a necessity. Now, I've got a really good friend, actually an extended family member, named Paul, who lives in the Denver area. And he actually operates a landscape irrigation company. And Paul's agreed to do some consulting for me and maybe even send me a couple of bits and pieces of irrigation parts, which is really cool. In the Denver area, not much precipitation falls out of the sky. That's why irrigation is a necessity. Where I live, we get a lot more rain. If you live out west, and I told you that in 12 years I've never watered my lawn, you'd probably drop your jaw. But there are times in the summer, mid-July to August, when things do get pretty dry, too dry for veggies. So the garden in general, and especially new seeds that I've started, need to be irrigated. The first part of my plan for keeping my crops moist involves the way I'm building permanent beds to begin with. And the beds are going to be 30 inches wide and 12.5 feet long. I'll do another video and explain all of that to you and the whys and wherefores later. But this first area I'm going to be using in the front yard has a pretty good slope to it. And I'm going to build these beds pretty much on contour as much as possible, because contour is a curved line and we're dealing with rectangular beds. I'm actually raising the beds by pulling soil out of the pathways in between. I'm filling the beds with wood chips, almost in a back to Eden style, for weed suppression and to keep the temperatures down and hold in water. I'm not using wood chips on the beds themselves for some pretty specific reasons, but I am keeping them covered all the time. I built a few beds like this last year with some pretty good success. You can see how the paths look here. The idea is to mimic a permaculture design concept called on-contour swales. The cheapest and best way to store water is actually in the soil itself. And the paths in between my garden beds are designed to capture every drop of moisture that falls on this area. In an average precipitation year, in theory, I should be able to collect and store a heck of a lot of water. That'll make a reservoir of moist soil under my garden area, and although the plants won't be sitting in wet soil and will have plenty of drainage, they can reach down and get the moisture they need anytime they want. I know from observation, though, that even with all that water stored in the ground, there are times when things are going to dry up. And that's where my questions for my friend Paul come in. Where I live, we're charged for sewer service based on the amount of gallons we use, and that makes any water I use out in the garden pretty darn expensive. So I need to create a system that's really efficient. Drip irrigation would be the most efficient, and I'm planning on using drip tape inside of my little greenhouse eventually, but the beds outside are going to have a high turnover rate. There may be as many as 4 or 5 crops in a bed during a season, which means every day I'm going to be pulling crops, harvesting, and replanting. I might have 1 row of zucchini in a bed and then pull that mid-July when I can't sell any more zucchini and replace it with carrots, which might have 10 rows. I'd be constantly reworking and reconfiguring drip manifolds on these beds. Alright, so I've been rambling on for a while now, trying to set the stage for my friend Paul. So I'm going to rapid fire some questions here real quick, and hang with me because maybe some of it might be interesting for you. I've decided to go overhead, obviously, and I think impact heads are probably the way to go unless you got a better suggestion, Paul. I can pick them up pretty cheaply. Plus, I can easily put them on top of a T-post and get them up over any crops that I might have and get the whole area watered. I've got a 6-station timer that's going to go in the garage to keep it dry. Access to water is right here in the corner. So I'm thinking a 3/4 inch line, black poly, out to a manifold here. Is it cheaper, better for me to use one main backflow preventer or use the valves with the backflow preventers on them at the manifold? Obviously I need to put a head in each corner, and then probably because the area is 28 by 44 feet, I'll have to have at least 2 along the long sides. I don't know what the static pressure is, but we've got pretty good pressure. Do I need to have an extra station in the centers? It'd be nice to have as many timer stations as possible open, because I'm thinking if I build a wooden frame the size of a bed with quick disconnects and put something like micro sprays on it, whenever I have a new seedling situation where I've just seeded a bed, I can set that up so it would water that particular bed several times a day, and I might have more than one bed. Once the seedlings are up and established, I could remove those entire wooden frames, disconnect them, and hang the frame up in the garage or something, ready for the next seedling bed. It'd be nice to have 3 of those going at one time. This can all be pretty utilitarian, so from the manifold out I can just lay the lines on top of the ground. I'm thinking from the house to the manifold I can get enough slope that I can open valves and have it drain naturally, and then from the manifold on out I can disconnect the lines and roll them up in the wintertime so I don't have to blow anything out. That would be a good thing. Anyhow, for my friend Paul, if you got any suggestions, send them my way. I'll post this on your Facebook page to see what you think. For the rest of my subscribers, if you've got any ideas, please do post a comment, because any ideas are certainly a good thing at this point before I put all this in and go to a lot of work without and then have to redo it. In the meantime, hit that subscribe button if you're not already subscribed, and I appreciate your support. Please hit that like button, folks. That helps more people see this video. And thanks, and in the meantime, we'll get through this. See you later.